This is kind of cool. I don't know if it's going to be cool for him. Michael Kim of the PGA Tour joins us now, getting ready for the Masters. So we're going to do a little golf here. I imagine doing a Thursday pod with me is not as great as teeing off at Augusta. So I don't know if this is kind of a bummer for you. So thanks. I don't know.
It's not as good as not as good as playing in the actual Masters, but this is a close second for a guy that listens to your pod all the time.
Right. And you had sent in a life advice. Was it during Homa's life advice or was that just its own? That was during the visit with Homa, right?
That was my visit. That was the visit with Homa. He's obviously a good friend of mine. We played in college together, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of put in my life advice in there.
It worked. It was good. All right. So we'll do some master stuff here. It was delayed this morning. You've played in 5 events this year. So how does it work? Like, I want to ask some dumb questions here. I went through the 19 ways you can qualify for the Masters and looking at it this morning. I had an idea on some of it, not, but like, where is it for you right now? Like, how does it work for you when you realize, okay, like this, I didn't qualify because of this?
For me as a PGA Tour pro, really the easiest way is to win a PGA Tour event. That is, uh, other than kind of like getting really into details, that's probably the best way to get it in to get in. Otherwise, it's top 50 world rankings. For me, those two are probably the best ways to get in, which I unfortunately wasn't able to do. But always next year.
So you played in 2019. What Tell us the stuff you were thinking about that you didn't want anyone to know when you're actually like, I'm doing this and it's real.
I was for sure just freaking out on the inside. I get there Sunday. You just don't want to over prepare, but the practice facilities and you feel like you have to do so much homework. I played with Zach Johnson, who had won there before, and so you're just writing down note after note, just trying to get comfortable, trying to get a feel for that place. But that at that time, my game was in a really bad spot, and so I'm trying to get my game ready. I'm trying to do all this homework, and to be completely honest, I probably knew I wasn't going to play well that week. So you've got all these like emotions going, like maybe I might play well. I hope I can make the cut. Is kind of the thought process that was going through my mind at that time.
God, that must have been awful.
It's like, I imagine if you're like a basketball player, it's like you're playing the NBA finals, you're going to be in the rotation, but you're not going to make anything once you get in there. It's just, it wasn't, I tried to enjoy it as much as I can, but from like a professional game aspect, from my game, I was in a really bad spot.
Did your friends know? Did people close to you know that you were like, yeah, it's probably going to be great?
I mean, I wasn't playing very well up to that point, so I felt like my agents and my coaches, the real inner circle guys that kind of knew what was up, probably knew. I wasn't at that time, wasn't exactly like open with how bad my game was at that point. So the really close guys knew.
So is Zach, because it's your first time, and you have a really nice resume, coming out of the amateur ranks and winning Player of the Year at Cal. But golf is weird in that way. Like I've just got back into it this year. I'm not very good, and one of the things I always think is kind of silly about it is you have to compliment the other guy even if he sucks, and it's a way to kind of break the tension. But there's no tension. It's like we're not playing in anything that actually matters. But if you get paired up with somebody you don't know and you screw up and then your approach doesn't hit the green and he'd be like, oh, well, with that lie, you got it out pretty well. I'm just like, dude, you're just trying, like, I suck. Like none of that happened. Does that happen? I imagine it's who you're paired up with, but does Zach like realize what you're going through? But at the same time, like he's going to worry about his game that day.
Yeah. At that time, golf is so weird in that like you can have a really good practice session on the range, but as soon as you get onto the golf course, it's like completely different. And, in the practice rounds, I was able to hide it pretty well. And then tournament starts and, it wasn't the best. I remember I played with Ernie Els at a tournament a few weeks prior, and I was just hitting it all over the lot. And he's like, he's like, so what have you done in your career so far? Kind of just making small talk. And I was like, oh, I actually won the John Deere Classic, last year and whatnot. And I'm sure it's probably hard to believe right now. And Ernie kind of gave me the, hey man, I've seen it all. I've been through it all. I know exactly what you're going through. It happens to all of us, even a guy like me. So that was pretty cool to hear. It's golf is such a crazy mental game as much as it is a physical game.
So I've been there, and I always say, like, as a non-hardcore golf guy, it's a place that I've been lucky enough to go to, with all the places I've gone to through my career, that it exceeded expectations, and the expectations probably have never been higher for something that I was going to. And I didn't even really want to leave. I'd given my tickets to my college roommate for the last day, and I was like, yeah, I got to get back home anyway. NBA, right? And then when I was leaving, I was like, I kind of wish I hadn't done that, because it was that amazing. So explain to us. I don't know. This is probably, maybe it's boring. I don't know. But I'm over everybody being like, oh, you're a scratch golfer at your club? Well, you'd shoot 100 here. Okay, we got it. We fucking got it. It's hard. What is it, though, about it that maybe separates it? And I know conditions can play into some of the rotation of the U.S. Open stuff, and the scoring there has sometimes been comically high in comparison to what other majors would be at. But what is it about this layout in this course that just the guy who's like really good at his club doesn't understand?
I think it's just all the crazy amount of slopes. Everyone talks about it. It's way hillier than it looks on TV. And I feel like in recent years, TV has done a better job of how to explain it. But just like the shots of the lie itself doesn't match the shot you want to hit. So, for example, like 13, the ball's above your feet, and when the ball's above your feet, the ball wants to draw more. But the way the green is shaped, kind of left to right, you actually want to hit a fade. So there's all these like weird little mismatches that makes you want to hit a certain shot, but it doesn't agree with what the golf course requires in a sense. And so it's kind of like that for 16 out of 18 holes or 15 out of 18 holes, where the par threes you have a flat lie and it's fine, but the course just gives you so many weird, interesting lies that you have to hit shots that the lie doesn't want you to hit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You talked about pairings, and as soon as the pairings came out for the first round, we saw that Brooks Koepka, who's plus 1,800, if you're looking at that part of this, he's with Brian Harman, who's slow. So is it plus 500 that Brooks will punch him by the 10th?
I don't know exactly, but I don't know if they have like. Oh, they played on the Ryder Cup together last year, so I'm sure they're fine. I'm sure Brooks understands, and it's if you're a fast golfer he's on live, but if you're a fast golfer playing professional golf, you understand that you're probably paired up with a slower one, and you kind of know what to do if you're just waiting around all day.
So the pace of play part of it, though, like, can you? Because I've been to a few events where I'll watch kind of how the guys interact, and there's very little interaction until you're either teeing off. Most people are not taking the same path to the green, but are there times where you get paired with somebody where you're like, awesome, or like, this sucks?
Oh yeah. There's 200 odd members on the PGA Tour. There's going to be guys that you like, and there's going to be guys you don't like. And you get the pairing on Tuesday, usually around noon, and you're either like, oh great, let's say I'm playing with Max Homa, who's a good friend. That's great. Or you get paired with another guy, and he's like, oh man, he's slow and he complains a lot after every golf shot. That's gonna be a tough to play with for the first 2 days. And I've this is like my 10th year as a pro, so there's definitely certain guys that I enjoy and certain guys that you don't necessarily want to be paired up with all the time.
Okay, Homa. Did you like being paired up with him?
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, Max and I we played together in college, so and he's not slow or anything like that, and I've played countless of rounds with him, so super comfortable playing with Max.
Not too chatty?
No,
I'm kidding. I'm just
actually,
kidding.
like during tournament itself, he's not like the most. He's not chatty by any means. Like he's kind of in his doing his business. I probably came up to him and talked to him more than he comes up to me.
So, were you better than him at Cal?
Um, Freshman year, he's a couple years older. So freshman year, he was a junior. He was better. Sophomore year, I did win Player of the Year. So I guess I was a little bit better than him that
I think
year.
it's okay to say that. Yeah.
But he won NCAAs. He won Pac-12s. And I think he was like second or third in the voting anyway. So it was close for sure.
I always wonder, like, human nature. Now, this is going to sound like I'm trying to get something out of you, and this won't be the breakout video, but this is actually a terrible question. I shouldn't even ask it because I just think of like some of my friends, and I know that if I had the background that you and Homa had, like some of my friends would be so happy for me if I were Homa. And then I know that there'd be other friends that if I had played with them professionally, they'd be like, fuck him. So I don't expect you to sit here and say like, yeah, I'm actually kind of annoyed that Homa's, done this well recently. And, I'm on a podcast with you right now. Actually, this is one of the worst questions I've ever asked, but I think I have to leave it in as punishment.
No, I think it's, Max is really like a real good friend of mine. So I'm really happy to see how well he's done. And, Max has had his fair share of struggles. And I think he came on the pod to talk about it a few years back. So, when you've seen a guy that has been down, but really worked his butt off to get back to and even better than where he was before, it's super admirable. And I'm absolutely totally happy to see him have all the success that he's had.
Yeah, I almost feel like I need to explain it to the audience because we can see each other right now. But I knew there wasn't going to be an answer where you were going to be going like, oh, hey. But I think about the competitive part of it. But Max is just so likable. Like, I do love the guy. We're all rooting for him. I went to go see him at one of the programs at Riv, and he let me and my buddy just follow him for the entire time. He's just like, hey, come up to Riv. He's like, come on Wednesday. He's like, bring a friend. And then we'll just hang out. And I was like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, dude, it's Wednesday. It'll be fine. Nobody's going to care. And you could just walk the course with me the whole time. And I think that there is a parallel there for you and why I hope so many listeners are going to start rooting for you after being on the pod is that you had to go through it. You lost the card, you get it back. You're trying to find your game again here. And I imagine that's probably one of the coolest parts of the Homa relationship is that you guys can understand. Like, I love talking to other people that are on the air because there's only a handful of people that I can really talk to about the stuff that I go through. And I imagine that's probably the coolest part of your background and knowing this guy for a decade.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, he and I have had like similar trajectories where we both weren't like the most highly recruited guys out of high school. We go to Cal together. We both do really well, and we get our PGA Tour cards relatively quickly in a couple years. And then, we both go through some deep struggles, and, he's basically gone all the way back and far up. And, I feel like I'm on my way back up. And so it's been weird to see how our careers have kind of followed each other's. But at the same time, like, he and I have never really like super talked about like the ups and downs on a deeper level for some reason. And it's almost like I can talk to you about these certain struggles, but because he's such a close friend, I almost struggle a little bit more talking to him at times, even though he knows exactly way more than what we've gone through, and kind of the thoughts and all that.
Yeah, because it's such an individual sport. I imagine a lot of golfers are like, "Hey, I'm your buddy," and I talk about it, but like, I don't want to get in my own head while I'm sitting here with these therapy sessions with you. Uh, I always felt like, and I don't know if there's anything in golf that's close to this or sports because it's just cooler and more important. But when people ask me about on-air stuff, I was like, I don't think you ever become great until you're just like, "Yeah, I'm good at this." And now I'm going to stop thinking about every single little thing. So I'm not saying, I'm not comparing the two, but I wonder, with you getting the card back and feeling like you're coming back, the skill is all there, right? The skill is inside of you. You know, you have the skill. What is that process like to get to taking it easy on yourself and then probably playing your best golf again?
It's weird. Do you think, like, I thought, like, when I won my first PGA Tour event, like, from that point on, it's like I don't have anything to lose. It's kind of rainbows and everything from that point on. But it's weird how golf, it's you still feel like every shot, it's like you're living and dying with every par putt, with every tee shot you hit. And now that I've had my downs and now I'm back up, you think that, like, oh, I'm way more humbled. I have way more gratitude in playing on the PGA Tour, but at the same time, like, that urge of, like, caring so much about every little shot never really goes away. And it's, I hired a mental coach last year, and talk a lot about kind of acceptance of, like, this shot may not go the way you want, but at the end of the day, like, that's a possibility, and you kind of have to accept all the good and bad results. And it's just hard to do. You've practiced. I've played golf for 24 years. I've been a pro for 10, and it's just hard to kind of, they say, kind of get out of your own way, and it's a part of that. But it's like I feel like I'm going against every cell in my body, just going against human nature almost, by trying to let go.
Scotty Scheffler's plus 400. I mean, that's a pretty significant gap between him and Rory when I was looking at FanDuel this morning on it, where Rory's plus 1,000. I know Scheffler won it 2 years ago, but what is it about his game right now that he'd be considered such an overwhelming favorite?
He's just a ball striking machine. He hits it super long and straight. His iron game is incredible. And really, his only weakness right now has been his putting. But it seems like the last couple years, last couple weeks, he changed to a different putter, and that's helped him out a ton. And he's basically either won or been second in his last few events, and I think what he did on the final round of the Players, shooting, like, I don't exactly know what number, but maybe 7 or 8 under to come back and win. The putts he's made. I mean, he's just firing in all cylinders right now.
Who else do you like this weekend?
I really like Xander. I know he gets a lot of crap for not being able to finish out tournaments and win more often, but he's playing such good golf. He's had good success at that tournament. I think he finished second in 2019 to Tiger, or something around that. And he's been playing awesome. And I know he's definitely one of the favorites there too.
So if you had, you mentioned Scheffler just as ball striking, like, I think the answer is always, hey, if you could be elite at any part of the game, everybody's going to pick putting. Unless I'm wrong on that one, you can correct me.
That is the old saying is the drive for show, putt for dough. Stats will actually tell you it's actually quite the opposite.
Okay,
Putting,
now
yeah.
I'm interested. Tell me.
If you look at, there's this thing called strokes gained metric. It's much better stat than, it's like advanced metrics in the NBA. It actually shows you, instead of just kind of your standard field goal percentage and whatnot. And if you look at, the most important metric is actually your iron game. That is the most important for success in golf. And then right after that is driving, And then after that, it's around the greens, pretty similar to driving. And then putting is actually kind of last. But to win a tournament, you do need to make a lot of putts. So it's a weird, it's kind of weird, but for overall consistency and to be like top of the leaderboard week in and week out, your iron game approach to the green is the most important.
I didn't realize this until it just happened, but Homa's paired with Tiger later today. Have you played with Tiger?
I have not. I've had lunch with him a couple of times just because he was sitting next to another buddy of mine, and I kind of just joined him as an excuse. But I unfortunately have never been paired with Tiger.
I think as a professional golfer, you have a bit of, your entree into that conversation is a little bit easier than the rest of us. So I'm sure that was fine. Yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm excited now to make sure I dial that in a little bit later today. So if you look at, because I saw an interview where you were talking about like your interest in coming over from Seoul and coming to the States and being in San Diego, and it's like right around 2000, Tiger's blowing up, your dad gets you into golf, the whole deal. And then it's like, okay, you took it really seriously to get to the point of Cal and beyond everything we're talking about here. But like Tiger obviously introduced a new version of golfer where you're like, hey, you might be even better at this sport if you actually work out. And
shocking. So, if you're stronger, it's better.
Yeah, flexibility, strength, taking care of your body. These things all apply to this sport too. So we've had a long run now of golfers all taking this really seriously. And the equipment advances are just always going to happen because that's what happens. You get idiots like me to be like, yeah, I'll try those irons out. So what I'd ask you is, like, in basketball, because I know you're a big basketball guy, you wonder if the game has been solved but also broken with what we prioritize. Then you can get to the aesthetics of it. Baseball is certainly struggling with this stuff too. But I don't know what the next step is. And there will be some other advancement. But watching basketball now in the NBA, I'm like, I don't think all of a sudden will we have something where it's like, hey, actually, this whole 3-point thing didn't make any sense. I don't think that that's going to happen. It's just going to be maybe a more pronounced version of even what we're seeing now. I remember when Daryl Morey, he was theorizing like with his G League team, he was like, I want to just see maybe like they're only allowed to shoot threes and then see what happens. And everybody thought he was nuts. And you're like, actually, Daryl's probably making like a pretty astute point. Just like, let's get in the test lab here with it. Just go ahead, shoot 83s a game. Has golf kind of maximized like this generation of golfers? Like, is this kind of what it is? Like, it can't be beyond physically what your generation is doing now, right? Like, I don't imagine we're ever going to see this kind of jump from what we had in the 90s to what we've seen in the last 20 years.
It's definitely similar, like whether you want to talk NBA, NFL, or even baseball, where like the numbers have dictated how we play the game. With threes in the NBA or throwing more in NFL, or kind of going for home runs in baseball. It's for golf, it has meant we hit way more drivers than we used to, even on holes where, like, you just hit like a 4-iron, and like on a shorter hole, you just lay up with a 4-iron and hit it to your number and try to make greens or make birdies that way. Now it's what a lot of these guys call bomb and gouge. We just hit driver as far as we can and kind of go from there, because the numbers show statistically like that's the better way to play, because that 4-iron that you're trying to hit in the fairway doesn't go in the fairway 100%. Now you're really behind the 8-ball, and so there's this distance boom along with the technology that lets us hit driver a lot straighter than we used to before. And I'm sure, well, they're talking a lot about rolling the ball back, making the ball go shorter, maybe making the driver be less easy to hit. And so the rules might kind of cut back on that. But, I do feel like we are trying to, play the game as efficiently as possible. And I don't know if there's another massive step that we can take.
Yeah, that was an awesome answer. So far, what's the best point of your career professionally?
Probably the 2 week stretch of me winning the John Deere Classic, and then that automatically got me into the British Open. And so you take a plane from the John Deere straight to where it was Carnoustie. Played well at Carnoustie. Just that 2 week stretch was definitely like golf was actually easier for just about 2 weeks at that point. That was definitely the best.
Well, we're rooting for you, man, and I appreciate your support on the pod over the years. And Max had told me, he's like, "Oh yeah, you gotta have him on," and it was just random. I hit you up, was like, "Yeah, you gotta come on at some point." I know it wasn't the next day, but this was good timing, and hopefully we'll see you in the field next year. So thanks so much, dude.
Appreciate it. I'm a big fan of you guys. Thanks.